If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at Ordinary Women Podcast, on Twitter at Ordinary Women PC, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Ordinary Women, and I'm welcoming Berenice today. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to record today with you. Can you start by giving us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name is Berenice Alcala. I'm currently 25 years old and I live in Springdale, Arkansas in the US. Really, I have quite, a diverse range of experiences, but we will definitely get into that. But as a quick introduction, I currently work as a marketing manager for a nonprofit called Interform, which is all about arts and fashion in the state of Arkansas and uplifting the creatives in the community. I am also a professional fashion model, and I love to help my community, so I love to be very active in there as well. So just trying to make a positive difference here where I live. And I have the questions that you sent me, Lucy, in necessity, and tell us something unusual about me.
Yes,
And I was
please. That was going to be my next question.
Something really weird about me, which apparently is not super common, is I am very allergic to pineapple. And it's funny because anytime I go to the doctor's office and they ask me for any allergies, I'm like, no, but just pineapple. And it's the most random thing, too. So that's like one unusual thing about me.
I had never heard about that allergy. That's yeah. Are you like deadly allergic to it?
Yes, it's really bad. And it's weird because it's an allergy that I developed later in life around 14 years of age. I was not always allergic to it and just suddenly. And to this day, because I tested it very recently, I am still allergic. So it's really weird.
Yeah, it is. I hope you don't miss it too much.
No, honestly, it's okay because I didn't consume it as much anyway. If it was something like mangoes or strawberries or bananas, I would be very upset about that, but it's not, so that's good.
Cool, at least that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing. So, obviously, on this podcast, we talk a lot about what it's like to be a woman. So, I'd like to start by asking, was there a moment or an event in your life when you realized that you are a woman?
Oof, yes. I will say, I think I'm very much influenced by my culture. So I am originally from Mexico. I was born there, but I was raised in the US. But the cultures are vastly different. And so the way that we see women in my culture is so different than the American way of seeing a woman in a way. And so, growing up, I became very aware of tradition. And, in my culture, it's very customary for women to get married at a very young age, have kids, start families. And that's kind of the role that women usually take in that traditional culture. But then growing up in the US kind of contradicts that in a way. And so it's kind of like you have this traditional mentality of your heritage, but then the place that you grow up in is something completely different. And so I think from a very young age, thankfully my parents were never that traditional in the sense of instilling in me that I have to be married and like my role is to be a mom someday, right? And they always allowed me, to explore my creativity and the hobbies that I love and to pursue a career. They've always encouraged me to really go for my dreams, go after my dreams. So at a very young age, I kind of realized that like I should never let myself be limited by those beliefs because I am a woman, because it's very easy to diminish opportunities based on that. So I think my first realization of why I am a woman was when I was very little and I would be asked, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I realized, I come from this background where the majority of the women in my family don't have an education, but here I am challenging these traditions and circumstances, and that was so empowering. And I think that was really the fuel that led me to be able to accomplish some of the biggest things that I have done at this age. So I would say ever since I was little, just the idea of being able to overcome those traditions and ways of thinking and using them as fuel and challenging and breaking those generational curses.
That's so cool. I love that. And that you have two cultures and you're able to cherry pick what you prefer from each. That's super cool. And
Yes,
do you think your mother is more in the tradition of your Mexican culture, or is she also breaking a bit from that?
I will say so. My mom, she grew up half of her life in Mexico, and so unfortunately, the circumstances in her family were that she couldn't pursue any education or career because she had to work and help her family because of the way that they grew up. So I will say that she kind of had no choice but to follow that traditional path growing up. But then when she came to the US, where the woman has to work in a way, most of the time, it depends, obviously. But in her circumstance, she had to help out and work and also help raise us as her kids. So I think that her circumstances just didn't really give her much of an option as to what path to follow. But I will say, when it comes to raising us as her children or raising me, she never inflicted those traditional ways of thinking onto me. She never made me feel like because I am a woman that I have to be married and have a husband and have a family and that's the only option that we have as women. She never made me feel that way. She actually was the opposite and empowered me to create a future for myself and be able to support myself, and then, encouraged me and said, in this life there's time for everything. You're going to have your time for everything the day that you get married and you find a partner, but it's going to be to add to what you're already creating. And so she actually encouraged me and said, go after your education, go after your career, prioritize yourself. And then later down the line, there's no rush. You can start your own family and do all those things, because you can do so much more than that. So she never limited me. So it's just a mixture. It was almost like she knew what it was like to grow up in that traditional sense, and so she didn't want that for her children. And I am very thankful that she gave me that power and empowered me in that way.
That's so cool. She sounds amazing.
She is.
And at this point, I'm pretty sure you're going to mention her in my next question. But I'm still going to ask my
Yes.
next question in case I'm wrong or you have more to add. But did you grow up with any women role model?
Oh, definitely my mother. I mean, yes, that was the first person that came to my mind. For sure. She is my rock and someone that I consider to be my best friend, and just the way that she has overcome so many challenges in her life. I'm so thankful to come from a very close-knit family. But I have a very special connection to my mother, just the way that she empowers me and encourages me every single day. She believes in me so much. There's never a time that I ever doubt that she doesn't, believe in my abilities, and always pushes me to be the best. And if she feels like I'm struggling, she's there. Or if I'm going down the wrong path, she's the first person to call it out. Definitely her, but also the industry that I've worked in for the past few years, I have met so many influential women, just completely killing it in their fields and industries. I have always worked in the nonprofit industry, and I was so inspired by the women, just the CEOs that are starting big orgs, the female entrepreneurs. Just, I have had so many amazing mentors in my life that have been women, and I absolutely look up to them, how they just challenge, the standards and the societal norms that unfortunately have been instilled, and just completely killing the game. So I will say I have such an amazing group of women that I do look up to here, that I learn from every single day, and I am so thankful for that circle.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it sounds that you have a very absolutely amazing circle, both that you had as a child and today as an adult. That's so
Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yes,
and
that's.
so
I
much.
think it's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was agreeing. Like it's so amazing, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And do you think that the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
Oh, definitely. I think especially so in my modeling career, I started doing this about 4 years ago. I was fresh out of high school. It was something that I've always been a fashion lover, and I was very shy, very introverted. I didn't really want to expose myself to that, but there came a point where people started to ask me about my outfit details and wanted me to start a page. And then that kind of started a whole social media frenzy where I just did it to just share my fashion, but then it opened up the door to this whole modeling industry in Northwest Arkansas. But the thing is that I never considered or even thought that it was possible for me to even be a model, because in my head I had this beauty standard that I thought about when I thought about model. Like, you have to be so tall and you have to be a certain size, and because I am also I'm a very petite person, so I never saw myself as being able to be a model, really, based on those standards that I thought defined one. And I also didn't see a lot of people of color in this industry. Well, women, I mean, modeling is very, usually you think of women in this industry, but I think I'm more going towards, like, there is representation in women, but when it comes to women of color, there's not a lot of that. And I felt discouraged at first because I didn't know anybody as a Latina who was already doing the things that I aspired to be doing in that industry. And so after so much thought, I said, well, somebody, like, I'm sure that there has to be some sort of community. And thankfully, there's a whole fashion industry here. And then I guess it was just my lack of knowledge in a way, but also back then that there was not a lot of that here, where I live. But I started doing it anyway, and slowly but surely, I started finding more and more representation and Latinas and women of color being models and doing modeling and breaking these beauty standards. And that was so inspiring to me. And to this day, it keeps growing and growing. And I've been so lucky to get so many opportunities in modeling. And I even get little girls, telling me that they want to do stuff like I do, and they tell me that I inspire them, and it's so rewarding to hear that, because it is scary. It is scary to go into something that you don't know, and especially when you don't have guidance from anybody or anybody to relate to. But there's so many amazing women here that I have met, and to me it's so important to have that Latina representation, because you can relate, you see yourself in them, and they see themselves in you. And so that is one of the reasons why I love doing modeling, and ever since then it just took off, and now I do it because I really want to continue to inspire more and more women, especially the young women, because I know what it's like, to be riddled by insecurities or comparing yourself to so many other people, or just not seeing yourself in general and just saying, like, this is not for me. So I don't know. So definitely I've seen a lot of lack of representation in general in women of color in many areas, professionally and just in general everywhere. And I think that we all deserve a place at the table. So I am so happy to see that growth happening. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's so cool that now you're, well, as you were saying, like, you're creating representation for younger women or even older women. I'm sure there are probably a lot of older women who also love to see young women and, like, recognize themselves in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to jump on kind of the second part of this podcast and talk about a project, achievement, life experience, whatever it is that you're proud of and you want to talk to us about. So, what do you want to talk to us about today?
Ooh, yeah. So I I was really thinking about this, but so I have two that right away pop into my mind. And so one, for sure, being able to obtain my higher education and getting my bachelor's degree. And I say that it's one of my biggest achievements in life because of my circumstances. So I am first generation in my family, especially on my mom's side. My mom has a huge family. There's a lot of people in this family, and so far I am the only one who has been able to achieve a higher education. Also, none of my parents went to college. They didn't graduate high school, and so I have been first generation in a lot of things. But also, I am a DACA recipient, so DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So here in the US, it's basically protection for those people who came here at a young age against their will. And so it's just kind of like giving us the opportunity to work and go to school. There's a lot of limitations to that. So in essence, you know, a lot of us, once we graduate high school, we kind of stop there because getting a higher education is one, expensive. We don't get to have federal aid. We don't get to have any student loans. So it's really hard to continue to, you know, get a higher education in college because of how expensive it is, and just there's not a lot of assistance that we are able to qualify for. When I first started, I always knew from a young age I wanted to go to college. I always wanted to get an education, but just knowing that was a huge limitation in a sense. But thankfully, I worked full time the entire time I went to college so that I could afford college. And that was very tough. It was mentally draining and, of course, financially. The first few years when I started college, I had to pay as an international student, even though I've lived here my entire life. And so
What?
college tuition, I know it's crazy because they consider us international students, even though we've basically grown up our entire lives here. We don't know anything. Like, I haven't gone back to my home country since I left until recently. But it's just so many things like that that are so unfortunate. I remember one instance in particular when I graduated high school. I was accepted into my dream university because I wanted to be a lawyer. But when I went there and it came time to sign, they found out that I didn't have, you know, like proper documentation, as you can say. They basically said, "Well, we're sorry, but we can't give you any scholarships, and therefore you can't go to this college." And so that was a very heartbreaking time in my life because I basically poured everything into this dream, and then the doors just completely closed, and I had to take a moment and step back and reevaluate absolutely everything that I've worked for, and kind of find a plan B. And ultimately, I was not able to go to law school or anything because of it, and I had to rewire. I had to rewire my plans, and but thankfully, you know, I was able to get through that, and I was able to explore my creative passions, and that is where, you know, I came into this modeling industry, and I pursued business administration, marketing, and so now I that's what I do for as a career. So ultimately everything worked out, but I think just like the fact that I was able to graduate college and secure an education, but you know, despite all the circumstances and all the no's and rejections that I faced, and I did that, and I am so, you know, happy that I did that, and that I feel like taught me so many lessons. It taught me resilience. It taught me not to take no for an answer, because you'll get that a lot. Like, unfortunately, rejection is huge whenever you're DACA. And I'm hopeful that things will get better, and you know, it's made me a stronger person. So I am glad that I had to go through all of that, though it was difficult, because it brought me to where I am today.
Wow, I'm very ignorant, to be honest, with especially like school in the US. I'm French, been once
Yeah.
to the US. But I'm so sorry that that happened to you. That is so infuriating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really hope that the laws will change because, sorry, but what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's really crazy, and it's unfortunate. It's something that we have to. There's a lot of us here in the U.S. that have the status, and it grants us protection and opportunities, but it's not. It's not like a law necessarily. It's more like an executive order. The president can easily say, like, well, that we're going to take it away. It's a program that's not. It's not set in stone, and so they're constantly fighting to legalize it and like give us a path to actual citizenship, because it's not really stable. But I think that knowing that makes us work that much harder in a way, because we work so hard for everything that we have. I mean, to be able to even get it, you have to have a perfect criminal record, and you can't mess it up, basically. And it keeps us in check for sure. But I'm just going to look at the bright side of it and be thankful that we have something, you know, because the immigration system is unfortunately very broken here. But we do what we can with it, and that's what I am focusing on, is just taking it one day at a time and enjoying the blessings that I do have now.
Yeah, and congratulations on your degree. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So did you enjoy the course? How did you end up with this? Well, like you told a story about like, yeah, the low part, but then why did you decide to do business administration and marketing?
Yeah. So like my ultimate goal in life was always to kind of be my own boss babe, basically.
Amazing. We
And so
love
I thought,
this.
is I kind of made a list of like, okay, what am I good at besides, this thing that I was really focused on. And ultimately, I decided that I wanted to have a creative job because I really love being creative and artistic. And fashion was the other thing that I've always wanted to pursue. I've always wanted to be like a fashion designer. When I was little, I've always like drew out my sketches. I would organize fashion shows with my cousins. Like it was something that I've always loved as a little child and growing up, of course, into adulthood. And so then I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe, the way to get into it is somehow getting into like, well, first learning how to run a business, but also exploring like marketing because marketing is such a broad category, but you can do so much with it. And I'm like, well, I feel like I could find a job with that in so many different places. And so that's ultimately what led me. And the classes, of course, taking these really fun courses where I realized, yeah, I can see myself doing this for a long time. And that is what ultimately led me to pursue my degree in that. And then also, halfway into my college education, I got a job at Interform, where I currently work now, which is all about that, just merging fashion and art, and then also my love for modeling all into one. So it just felt like the perfect thing. Like it was just perfectly orchestrated. It was meant to be. And so thankfully now I work in marketing and I get to do all of the things that I love into one. So at the end of the day, everything worked out the way it was supposed to, and I am so happy.
Oh, I'm glad that you found what you love. That's amazing. And yeah, you sound really passionate, so that's super cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
And how did you find the energy to do everything? And how did you not give up? Like, I think a lot of people, and that's what you were saying at the beginning, right? Like, it is so hard. It would also
Yeah.
be a super natural reaction to be like, never mind, I'm just going to go work. Where did you find the energy and the courage to continue and do all the hard work?
I think it was from a place of how badly I wanted it because my inspiration really largely came from my parents because of the sacrifices that they had to make for me to even be here right now, leaving their country of birth and coming to in search of a better future for me as their daughter. And I saw that as the biggest sacrifice, and I said to myself, I cannot let that be in vain. I am going to make this worthwhile for them and for us, and this is for our family as well, and also in the future for the family that I want to one day create. And so it just came from that little fuel that of like, you know what, I am gonna prove everyone wrong, like even though the odds were against me, I want to do this. And it was just of for me it was almost like do or die. It was like I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna do this, and once I get it into my head I have to go after it. And I think it was just the passion behind it, and it's just I really wanted it, and I knew what the stakes were. And I always tell myself that if I'm going to start something, I'm going to finish it. And it just came from that. And honestly, it was like adrenaline almost, like the entire time, just surviving. But also because I knew that it was for my greatest good, and that if the doors were opening for me, it was for a reason. And just following through with that.
That's so amazing. And did you meet anyone who had like a similar story at uni, or was everyone more like, I don't know, more privileged and more classical path, if I can say that?
Yeah, well, when I was in college, I was usually the only brown person. So that was an interesting experience. In a lot of places it seems to be that way, but I will say like I have been a lot of friends that are in very similar circumstances to me. Like sometime in June, I got the opportunity to go back to Mexico after so many years since I was one when I came here. So that's been a while, and also my parents got to go with me And it was their first time going to their homeland in 20 plus years. My mom hasn't seen her side of the family since she left. So you can imagine that was very emotional. But on that trip, because I went to do a volunteer thing, it was weird because I met somebody who was from the same area of Arkansas that I am from. And it's crazy because it's like we saw each other in Mexico. We had no idea. And it's just moments like that where you realize, there's so many people like me. We're just everywhere. But I do have a lot of acquaintances and friends that also are DACA and have gone through very similar circumstances. But I mean, we're united together at the end of the day. We're very supportive of each other. But I know for a fact that there's a lot of us and I am not alone.
Oh, that's so good to have a community at least and people you can share this with. And yeah, I can imagine it must have been so emotional, this trip to Mexico. It must have been, yeah, amazing. I hope you enjoy and your parents too.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience that I'll never forget. And I am so thankful I got to do that.
Yeah. And did anyone have an impact on your getting your degree? Like helped you or motivating you or yeah, any sort of pushed you to do it? Or like, yeah, any big help, I guess.
Oh, yes. Well, I will say, I feel like I keep talking about them, but my family for sure. They were my biggest support system through all of this. But I also, along the way, found mentors in college and uni that guided me through this process because, of course, in my family, I was the first one, and so nobody could really help me in that sense. So I found a lot of amazing mentors throughout the journey who taught me how to register for classes or how do I find resources for this thing or that thing. Even some people who recommended me to apply to local scholarships to help me pay for college. Those are things and people that I am so grateful for. So I've definitely had so much support in this community and helping me through this process of getting a higher education. But definitely, I will say the people who have had the biggest impact have been my family for sure.
Oh, yeah, they sound absolutely amazing.
They are.
And yay. I mean, we've touched on that already, but what challenges have you faced?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I feel like that one for sure. The number one is like my status, and the implications that come with that as far as the opportunities that are available to me, but also the fact that it kind of creates this instability in a way. But that has been the biggest thing I will say because there are opportunities here. There are ways. It's just about educating myself and finding ways to overcome them. It depends on what we're talking, and also like even just in the being in the modeling industry, it can be so damaging mentally, as women, or I feel like, at least I'll speak for myself, I feel like there have been times where I have compared myself, especially on social media, and just the way that you're prone to creating these insecurities that might not have been there before, and also opening up myself to criticism, because when you put yourself out there, it's inevitable that you're gonna have people talking about you, and you're not going to be for everyone. And that was definitely hard mentally. It was discouraging at first. Not everybody was very supportive of that, but I was able to ground myself and figure out who I am and my purpose as to why I wanted to do it. And that's also something that I want to tell to other younger women is, comparison is the thief of joy. It really is. And all of us are so beautifully made and so unique, and there's a space for every one of us. So we don't have to be competing against each other. We should be very supportive of each other, and that's something that I always strive for. So that was definitely a big challenge that I had to overcome in that sense. So yeah, it's like merging my professional side with this other more like modeling side of myself as well, is like making sure that I didn't go through an identity crisis. But I think that I have found a sweet spot in the middle ground where I can be both professional, but also, pursue my other hobbies in life and have this healthy balance with everything. But mental health, I will say also, like that was another challenge is like don't burn yourself out. Make sure that you're prioritizing your health in every aspect of the word. But we made it and we're here, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, congratulations. Really, I can't say that enough. Yeah, I mean, comparison, I don't think I know one woman who, especially like as a young woman, I mean, I'm getting closer to my 30s now. So we're
Mm.
growing. But especially like in my 20s, I don't think I know anyone who was happy with their body, etc. Because
Right.
it's literally an industry that is working to make you feel bad so that you buy their product. So obviously you're going to be
Yes.
impacted by that, unfortunately. But I'm really happy that you found a balance with that and you're not comparing yourself anymore. That's really, really cool.
Oh, thank you. No, yes, you're absolutely right. It's actually, I feel like it's so counterproductive because you should be uplifting. But, I will say I'll give credit to some companies that are actually putting in the work to promote diversity and inclusivity, and are showing real life representation of women. I will give props to that we are slowly but surely changing that narrative. But, I want to continue to put my little piece in that to continue to do that at least here at my local community level. But you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, no, completely. I love that we're slowly but surely seeing the change, and let's hope that it will continue because that's really cool
Yes.
to see real people everywhere.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And yeah, mental health. Yeah, I can't imagine it must have been really hard. I hope that again you had good support system and good, I don't know, ways to feel better, feel good. Yeah, it's already years which are not always super easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And was there anything that was easier than you thought would have been?
What's there? See, that's. I mean, I think perhaps it's finding the path. I feel like my challenges were definitely a force, but at the same time, it was almost like I don't know how to like if I could put it into an illustration, it's like you being on one side, there being this thin veil and then your dream on the other side. It's like you can see it, it's right there, but you have like all of these obstacles that you have to overcome, right? Like it's always everything that I've ever wanted has always been within reach, but I think it wasn't until I actually mentally allowed myself to like not feel limited by my beliefs in like, oh, I don't have this or I don't have that, and just say, you know what, like just go for it. The way that it's just crazy how everything worked out in the end. Just like once I was able to get past that. But I feel like in general, I struggled a little. I was in a struggle bus, but we are here. But also, I think like connecting with people is so much easier than we think. It's like everybody has a story to tell. I believe in the beauty of getting to know people and communicating and hearing each other's stories, which is why I love podcasts like yours because you give us a platform to do that. But yeah, there was a time where I thought like being able to relate to people, especially in the line of work that I do, it's so important to communicate and connect with the community at large. And people are so open to it. And I think that it's thanks to that and thanks to them that I am able to be where I am now, thanks to their support and giving me this opportunity to continue to grow. So that I think that's what I would say for that.
Oh, well, yeah, again, I'm glad that you have an amazing community. And we didn't get to hear the beginning of your modeling career. So, how did that happen?
Yes. So I've always been that girly in high school that loved to dress up every single day. I was wearing heels to school every single day, doing makeup every day. So I really loved dressing up in fashion. And people started to ask me for fashion advice or to ask me to start a page where I can post like my outfit details and all those kinds of things. And so I eventually went for it and I started it just to share fashion. But I realized that I was getting a little bit more visibility and people were asking me to model for the brands and such, like, oh, like would you come in and like try this outfit on and like let us take a picture. And this it's just like little stuff like that, but then that kind of led me to like photo shoots. And the way that I started was like I would pay my brother like $10 to go and take pictures of me doing whatever. And I would just post those to my Instagram. And then in college, there was this fashion show that they were putting on. And there was one of the students in particular that was like, oh, well, you should come to this shootout that we're going to do for this magazine called Southern Sass. And there's going to be a bunch of photographers and models there. And I was like, oh, so there's a whole community of that here. And I ended up going. It was like 1920s themed. We had to dress up. And lo and behold, there was a whole bunch of photographers and models. And I made connections that day that ultimately opened the doors to this whole world of fashion and modeling and photography and fashion shows. Later, I kept pursuing that, and I started doing my shoots on my own time until professional photographers started reaching out to me personally, asking to book shoots with me, and then that just kickstarted a whole thing. And ever since then, it just took off. And it was so amazing. And then I learned, I participated in fashion shows, but also I learned that there's an organization here that does like Northwest Arkansas Fashion Week that I work for now. And it was just so amazing. But it was just almost like the snowball effect. Like one little thing led to another, and then it just became a whole thing. And so now I do it professionally. I am signed with an agency. I am a part of this group called Mac Models. I'm in season 2 now of that. So I've just gained so many amazing connections and friends that have guided me, mentors and model coaches that have taught me the ropes. So there is a huge community of that here where I live, but it was quite the ride.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations again. Yeah, you also made your way through that. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And why are you proud of yourself?
Oh, I think like we had to give ourselves credit as women. Just in general, being a woman in this society can be tough. It has its challenges. We can be minimized in so many ways, and but at the end of the day, I see us as such strong beings, forces of nature. So I think. And see, that's something that I have realized is that sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for the littlest things, and I think that everything is worth celebrating. But I think just thinking back about how many times I could have given up, but I didn't, and I kept going and I used everything as fuel. I am just really proud that I never decided to give up and I kept going.
Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, I mean, throughout our conversation, you said so many things that, yeah, you should be proud of. Yeah, you're so, like, it's so amazing. Congratulations on everything you're doing. That's really, really cool. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing bits of your story with us. It was so great and so interesting. And yeah, I think we're going to conclude our episode now. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to, yeah, talk about before we end?
No, I mean, I just wanted to thank you so much for creating this platform and allowing us to share our stories. And you're such an amazing host and person. And, I'm very thankful to have had this opportunity. And, I hope that it continues to grow. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you again so much for coming on this podcast. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There is a tradition in this podcast that the guest always gets the very last word. So the mic is yours.
You know what? I'm going to say this because I say this a lot. It's stay fabulous.